Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. For this tutorial, I'm going to go over regular expression. And if you are new to programming, regular expression is something you will encounter. Now, regular expression is a topic that is very broad. And if you start off with the intermediate or the more advanced level of regular expression, it can be very complicated. So I'm going to make several videos on this topic, starting from easy to advanced. Now, regular expression, also known as regex. Regular expressions are pattern matching in a text. So for example, if you are creating an application and you want the user to create some type of username and password, you will need regular expression to accomplish that. So for example, if you are creating a password online for your own personal use, maybe for the bank or for some type of website you signing up on, they will ask you to create a username and password. And some of the requirements in that in creating the password will probably be one special character, one uppercase letter, maybe a digit, and lowercase letters, right? That is called a pattern, and in the programming world we call it regular expression or regex. Now in Linux we use regular expression to search for some type of text in a file, or we also use regular expression to find files, right, based on the pattern. In Linux, they are used with commands like grep, sed, and awk. And grep, sed, and awk, it's a text processing tool we use for searching. Now, let's get a little bit hands-on and let me just demonstrate more how grep work on your system. So right now, I'm inside of my Linux test folder. And if I come here and I do an ls, I have a cars.txt and I also have a carlist.csv. So we are going to use these two files for our demonstration. So I'm going to go ahead and clear my screen. So let's say we are working at a car dealership and our job is to update the cars, see what is sold, get rid of cars, put cars on sale and stuff like that. We are going to use grep together with regular expression to make things easier. And later on, when we reach the more advanced side of using regular expression, we're going to use other commands like awk and sed. If we're using grep, the expression to do that is grep, the option for grep, the regular expression you're going to use, and then the path to the file. So right now we are working inside of the Linux test folder. So we are already inside of that path. Now we are just going to tell grep, because we are already in the current working directory, we are just going to tell grep what file to use. So we don't need to assign some type of path. We're already inside of the folder. So I'm going to use the cars.txt file. And I want to search for, let's say, for example, find any cars that has the letter A. To do that, I can say grep. For regular expression, it must be inside of single quotes, right? So that's my regular expression. And then I'm going to give it the file that I want to work with. So in our situation, we're working with cars.txt. Now inside of the single quote, I want to search for the letter A. So here I say grep, and inside of the single quote, I'm telling grep to search for any text that has the letter A. And we want to search for that pattern in the text file called cars.txt. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and here it brings back the list of cars for us. We have a lot of different patterns in grep. Now we want to search for cars that has the capital A in the beginning. So to do that, we are going to still bring up grep, but instead of just putting a instead of the single quote, we're going to use the caret. So when I use the caret, it tells grep to look in the beginning of the text. Go to the front, inside of open and closing brackets. I'm going to put capital A, and that tells grep to go inside of the file called cars.txt and start at the beginning of the text. So go to the beginning and only bring back cars that starts with capital A. So I'm going to hit enter. Now, if we look at the previous results, Audi did not come back because Audi did not have a lowercase a in there. It only brought back the cars with lowercase a. In the second example, we searched for uppercase a only, right? And we put that in the character class and we told it to go to the beginning. Now, if you want to bypass that, we can use the option -i, and -i means case insensitive, so ignore case. So we're going to go back and we're going to use the option -i, and -i means ignore case. Now we want to say go to the beginning and search for a. So inside of the square bracket, we're going to say a. So to clarify this, right, we said grep, we use -i to ignore case, and then we're saying to grep, go in the beginning of that text. So go to the front of that text and look for any cards that start with a but ignore the case. So remember, we're using -i to ignore case. So let's go ahead and hit enter, and you see here we got back the same result, right? So -i means to ignore case. Now let's try put the anchor inside of the bracket. I'm going to take the anchor out and I'm going to put it inside of the square bracket. Now this here will give you a different result. So when I put the anchor inside of the square bracket, it's saying not a. So inside the box means exclusion. However, it will highlight a in the text. So this means not a. So let's go ahead and hit enter. So it prints everything and just highlight it. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen. We can use the anchor symbol inside and outside of the bracket as well. We already have the anchor symbol inside of the square bracket. Now let's put it outside of the square bracket. Now when I do that, that means go to the beginning of the string or the text and exclude all text that starts with a, and we still have ignore case. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit enter and look here. If we look at the result, it excluded all the cars that starts with a, because remember before we had Audi, Alfa Romeo, and Acura. And if we look at the results, all of the cars that start with a did not show up. Now, I want you to pay very close attention to this part right here. The anchor symbol inside of the bracket does not mean go to the beginning. The anchor symbol inside of the bracket mean exclude. Do not include it in the result. Exclude. So it means exclusion. Take it off. But if we use it outside of the bracket, it means go to the beginning of the string. Okay? Just to make this very clear. So I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen. What happens if I want to search for cars that has a at the end of the string or match any pattern at the end of the string? So to do that, I'll say grep, and then inside of single quote, I'll use the letter A, and then I'll use the $sign at the end. Now let me just explain what that means a little bit more. Now I'm telling grep, go into cars.txt .txt and find any text that has a at the end. The $sign means at the end of the string. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and it brings back all the cars that has a at the end of it. If I want to match any string that has one character before a, so the dot means to match any single character. So let's press enter, and you would see that it brings back a single character before the A. If you wanted one specific character after the A, so then all you have to do is remove the dot before the A, and then you can put the dot after. And we are going to hit enter, and here you see it brings back one character after the A. Now this is just working with a TXT file, right? In reality, you probably will be working with Excel files, right? Or files that have extension .csv. Now in our folder, if we go ahead and use ls, we have the carlist.csv file. Now the CSV file works almost the same as working with a TXT file. So for example, if I want to say, for example, I can say grep, and I want to search for the pattern A, and I have to give which file I want to search, and I want to search the carlist.csv. Now if I press enter, you can see here make. So I'm going to bring back the file so we can see it a little bit closer. So if we look here, we have the make, which is here, model, year, price. Make, model, year, price, and we have but before I do that, actually let me just do a cat on that file instead of just doing a search pattern. So I'll say cat carlist.csv. This is a little bit better. If we look at what's in that Excel file, we have make, model, year, price. So this here will be my header. Yes, we can actually block off cell 1, right? We can block off this row right here, but I purposely put the year, make, model in the file like this, because some places you go, they will not have a proper Excel file, and if they don't have a proper Excel file that has a title and all pretty up, you have to get the job done same way. Now if we want to display everything in this file and we do not want to include the header part, which is line number 1 or row number 1, we can say tail, and then we're going to use the -n. Okay, I'm going to explain that in a little bit. Okay, so we can say tail -n plus 2, and we want carslist.csv. Now what this will do, the tail command will display the last nth part of a file, and we want to start from row 2, and then this is the file that we are working with. So the +2 will skip the first line and will start on the second line. That's pretty much what this command is doing. So let's go ahead and hit enter, and if we look here, it only displayed from the second line goes down to the last line. All right, so let's go back to regular expression. Now if I want to display the cards that has a in it, we can pipe the tail command to the grep command. So this little symbol on my keyboard, it's right on top of the backslash, and this command, that little straight thing that I just used, this is called the pipe command. So the pipe take the results of one command and put it into a next command. After we use the pipe command, we're going to use the grep command as well. So we're going to say grep, and we want to find all of the text in the carlist.csv that has a in there. Now this is a little bit different to the grep command we used previously. After we use the regular expression, we give the grep command a file to search for, but for this example we're not giving grep the file to search. We're giving the tail command the file to search. Now we're going to hit enter, and here we get the result back for all of the cars that has an A in it. Now let's search for cars that only starts with R or J. We are still going to use the tail command, and we're going to say grep. Now we're going to use the -I for case sensitive, right? We want to ignore case. And then inside of the single quote, we are going to say, we're going to use the anchor symbol. So this means go to the beginning of the string, and inside of the square brackets, we're going to say R, because we're looking for any cars that starts with R or J, and then J, and we close it off with the single quote. So this is the command we're going to use to find any cars that start with R or J. Now let's go ahead and hit enter, and it brings back Jeep, Wrangler, Jaguar, F-Pace, and Range Rover Evoque. Now let's go to a few more examples before I wrap this video up. Now let's say we want to search for let's say we want to search for any cars that does not start with R or J. If you want to exclude that, you have to put the anchor symbol inside of the square bracket. Now if I go ahead and hit enter, if we look at the results, Jeep did not show up for us, Jaguar did not show up for us, and Range Rover did not show up for us. Range Rover is spelled wrong here. It's supposed to be an E. So let me just fix it quickly here. Let's use an example using digits. We're going to still use the tail command and pipe it into grep. So if I want to display any of the cars, their price ends with 9, I have to use the $sign. So inside of brackets, I'll say $9 closing bracket. Now remember, the $sign means go to the end of the string. Now when it goes to the end of the string, it should bring back any of the string that ends with 9, right? So if I go ahead and I hit enter, if we look here, it highlighted for us. It also highlights the year as well, but we're not looking for the year. We're only looking for the prices that ends with 9. Now I'm going to use a different command to fix this up in a bit, but before we move on, before I get there, I just want to show you a few more examples. I only want to print the cars, the prices that ends with 9, not the year. Regular expression also has the digit pattern, and the digit pattern is simply 1 to 9. So if you want to look at a specific columns with number, I can say here 1 to 9. I'm also going to give it another 1 to 9 close bracket, and this means give me anything that ends with 9 in the last column. So if we look here, we have 1 to 9 in this column. So we want to, that means I don't want anything in this column, which is in the year column. I want it in the price column. This is why I put 1 to 9 twice. Press enter. And if we look, it only gave us the price of the cars that ends with 9 and not the year. What we just did with grep can also be accomplished with awk. I did a previous video on awk, which I'm going to link up here if you want more example of using awk. Preferably, I like to use the awk command together with the tail and the grep command when I'm using Excel files, right? Because awk is very good for printing stuff in columns, and grep is really good for printing stuff inside of a text file, so inside of a .txt file. The results will be a little bit, it will be similar, but awk is pretty neat when it comes to printing stuff in an Excel file. So let's use an awk command with regular expression. So if I want to print, let's say, the model of the car, right? And I only want to print column 2. I can say awk, and I'm going to use the -s option, which means field, and I'm going to use the comma. If we looked at the result from the grep command, the field separator was a comma, right? And so we're telling awk the field separator in our example, or in this command, will be a comma. And inside of single quotes, I'm going to use the curly braces, and I'm going to say print, and I want to print the second field. I'm going to say $2, and $2 in awk mean the second field or the second column. And then I'm going to tell awk which file to get that information from, or get the data from. And then I'm going to use the pipe symbol and pipe the results to the tail command, because we don't want to print the first row. Remember, the first row is the make, model, year. We don't want to print that information. We only want the cars. We don't want the heading. So I'm going to say tail, and then we're going to say -n, because remember, we use the -n to tell the tail command where we're going to start. So I'm going to say +2, so start from the second row. And then I'm going to pipe that result into the grep command. So I'm going to say grep, and then I want all of the cars that probably start with S, okay, uppercase S. Let me open this up so it can be more readable. Okay, now look what it's bringing back for us in the second field. In the second field, which is the model, we have Sonata, and we also have a Sentra. To go over this again, I'm using awk to only look for cars in the second field, and then which will be the model. I'm using the tail command because I don't want to print row number 1, year, make, model, price. So I'm telling the tail command starts from 2, right? And I'm using the grep command to search for the pattern. And in our pattern, we say go to the beginning of the string and look for anything with uppercase S. You can do the same if I want to find anything that starts with Q, right? I should get back Q50, which will be the infinity. If I look for anything that starts with F, I will get back F150 and F paste. So that's how you use regular expression in Linux. I will make a different video showing how to use regular expression when you're creating a software. So most likely that will probably be a C or C++ example. Hopefully you learned something from this video. If you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. And I will see you guys in the next tutorial.